Hello?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Excellent. How are you?
Good, good. I think we're just waiting on a few more people, and we will get started shortly. Thank you very much, though, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having it.
Yeah. Um, to our virtual town hall, sponsored by Black Mountain News and Black Mountain Dems and Friends. We're just going to get started shortly. And just a few housekeeping points before we get to it. If anybody has any questions for Deirdre, if you could wait till after a brief Q&A with her. If you have any questions, can you drop them in the chat? And if you're happy to have video turned on and sound turned on, indicate that, and I will switch you back on. And a recording of this virtual town hall will be published to blackmountain-news.com, and will also be uploaded to the Facebook event. And if anybody's happy would think anybody else is interested, please feel free to share, of course, to share this recording with others who may be interested. Many of you are already getting your ballots. And we're, I think, 22 days away from Election Day. I think we're 22. I could be wrong. 22, 23. There's not much time left, and many people are filling out their ballots right now as we speak, trying to get things in as early as possible. So time is certainly of the essence. But I think what we'll do is we will get started, and we may have some other people joining us, and I'm paying attention to the participants, and I will be admitting people as they join us. So I think probably I think that many of our readers and viewers may actually be somewhat unfamiliar with what the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors do, and what role board members play and what they're responsible for. And I think a bit of education to start off would be absolutely great. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, it's across the board. The vast majority of people probably never even heard of the Board of Supervisors until this election, and yet it comes around every 4 years. But it's overshadowed by the presidential race. And the Board of Supervisors themselves really like to keep a low profile. Most people don't even know who their supervisors are, and mostly the supervisors, other than Steve Gallardo in District 5, don't even go to community events. So even if you normally go out and meet your local representatives, you're unlikely to meet the supervisors. Board of Supervisors it's basically the U.S. Senate of the county. It's the highest elected office in the county. It is over the entire budget for the county, so $3 billion with a B. It is over all of the almost 500 authorities, boards, commissions, departments, special taxing districts. And with all of those entities, the Board of Supervisors, they make the entire county policy, and then those entities have to create their own policies that fit into the board's policy for the county. And then the board approves all of their budgets. And many of them have budgets in the hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars each. The board also appoints the administrators and or board of the board members of all of those entities, except for the 6 county offices that are on the ballot this time. Any vacancies that come about, so any legislators that for whatever reason are no longer in office and there's another election later on, the Board of Supervisors appoints a replacement for those legislative seats that fit within the county of Maricopa County. Each Board of Supervisors for each county does that. Also for the Justice of the Peace, when the county assessor was indicted and eventually for human trafficking and eventually resigned, the Board of Supervisors appointed a new assessor until the next election. The county attorney, when Bill Montgomery was elevated by Governor Ducey to the Arizona Supreme Court, the Board of Supervisors appointed the county attorney replacement until the next election. So, you know, they're justice of the peace constables. I mean, any of the offices that fall within the county, the Board of Supervisors gets to appoint the replacement until the next election. And of course, you know, the non-elected positions, the board just gets to appoint them and can also remove them and reappoint someone else, which is what happened recently with the workforce board, which is, they have a huge budget and they're tasked with helping people get back to work. So whether people are entering the workforce or people are they've been laid off and they need to re-enter in a different industry, for example, this workforce board is supposed to help train them and give them the tools that they need. But they were just audited last year by the Department of Labor, and they had 10 violations, most of which were conflict of interest. And the Board of Supervisors did not want to conform to the Department of Labor standards. And it even argued that the county is not subject to federal law. So the workforce board itself filed a complaint with the Department of Labor against the Board of Supervisors for the conflict of interest. And so the Board of Supervisors just got rid of the chair of the workforce board and replaced him with a new one. So there's not a lot of oversight. And then one last thing that they do, really, and they do a lot, but one big one that they do that is not well known. We have the Independent Redistricting Commission, which after the census in 2021, the Independent Redistricting Commission will redraw the districts according to population distribution for the congressional and the state legislature. But the Board of Supervisors redraws their own lines in 2021 with no oversight.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I think I didn't know about redistricting. That's really interesting. That's a really interesting point. Looking at your campaign website, you've set out a pretty bold platform. You're tackling some pretty big issues: COVID contact tracing, voting rights, infrastructure, highway repair, animal care and control. Meanwhile, your opponent, Steve Chukri, is a bit light on detail. And it is not a good sense of what he sees for another term on the board. Why do you think he's so reluctant to share his vision for the board if he's elected to another term?
Well, the interesting thing is, a little tidbit, is he didn't even have a website until like 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. So this is his third time that he's running, and he's never had a website before. And so basically the strategy has been, keep your head down. Democrats don't usually run in this district. As long as we don't rock the boat, people will just vote for the R. And that's worked for him. But this year he not only had someone running against him, but he had someone actually running like on the ground, a campaign and social media and, from every direction. So he had to create a website for the very first time. And yeah, he doesn't want to. I mean, but I can sum up what his policies are, and he's very proud of this. It's running lean, spending as little money as possible, which means that the programs are underfunded, but also we have underemployment for the department. So we're expecting people to do 2 and 3 jobs for the pay of 1 job. And that's considered running lean. But then at the same time, we're $7 billion behind in infrastructure maintenance funding. And we've known that for years and haven't tried to do anything about it. The CARES Act, we got almost $400 million, and they allocated it to different places that sounded good. But for example, they put $24 million in a small business grants fund, but they didn't publicize it. The grant application process was 30 days, and they put so many restrictions on it that almost no small businesses in Maricopa County qualified. And that was also a strategy. They're saying, well, if we don't spend the money, then we get to save the money, and then we'll have more money in 2021 and be able to brag that we found this extra money. Well, people are suffering now. You know, we've got to help people get through 2020 before we can pat you on the back for saving unnecessary funds for 2021.
You know, this election is actually quite interesting. And it took a while for me to actually understand the implications of this, but Steve Chukri is, of course, on the board of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. He's also the president and CEO of a major industry lobbying group, the Arizona Restaurant Association.
Right.
He's and as you mentioned earlier, Maricopa County has gotten $400 million in CARES Act funding. Is only allocated $15 million of that to contact tracing. And a few weeks ago, Steve Chukri claimed that a CDC report that made a connection between dining in at restaurants and the spread of COVID-19 was misleading. And Greg Stanton, former Phoenix mayor and now a member of Congress, has actually written a letter to the County Board of Supervisors asking whether or not Chukri's role as a lobbyist is actually making him biased against the connection between dining in and the spread of COVID-19. Now, I'd like to hear from you as to what you think, you know, a lobbyist and also Maricopa County Board of Supervisors board member. How does it affect his ability to actually function impartially on the board?
Well, you know, under Arizona law, we actually have a conflict of interest law. And it even specifies that conflict of interest doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be the perception. And no elected official in the state of Arizona is even supposed to have the perception of being in a conflict of anything that might influence a decision making for something that might become before the board. Well, obviously, the pandemic is before the board. And another thing that happened was, you know, the Board of Supervisors they made the mask mandate for Maricopa County, but then they didn't have any enforcement on the mask mandate. And then there are the CDC recommendation regulations, you know, for the businesses within Maricopa County, but the county health department and the county environmental services are two county entities that are tasked with enforcement for all health regulations for restaurants. And both of them came out publicly and said that the Board of Supervisors has not given them authority to do any enforcement whatsoever around the pandemic. So, you know, even with the state law, for example, that the businesses still have to be at 50% capacity. Well, the county environmental department and health department don't have the authority, according to the Board of Supervisors, to enforce even 50% capacity. So, I mean, definitely there's a conflict there if we're not even using the agency's tasked and the agency's funded to do a job, not allowing them to do their job. And then also you should know that Steve Chukri is the consular for the Republic of Estonia. And I haven't been able to find any elected official in the United States on any level who's also the local representative of a foreign government. And I feel like that's a conflict of interest as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I assume most people don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's Arizona Republic even did a story where they mentioned it. It was more of a celebration that he had been appointed to the consular for the Republic of Estonia, but nobody seemed to question it, that it was an issue. And to me, these things, you know, you've got one, this is a full-time job. This is not like the state legislature where this is a part-time job and you need another job just to be able to pay your bills. And you only are expected to serve, you know, half a year, even though legislators actually serve the whole year because they're meeting with their constituents the whole year. But the County Board of Supervisors is a 4-year term, and it's a full-time job with full-time pay. It gets paid almost 3 times as much as a state legislator.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other points that you've focused on is millions of dollars spent by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors on litigation claims, defending against litigation claims. And you say that if remedial action isn't taken, that they're on the line for more legal costs in more future cases. Can you elaborate a bit more about where your concerns are there?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is the Board of Supervisors has been not just slow, but distinctly making the decision not to mitigate when known violations are brought to their attention. I mean, I know personally because I was at the Board of Supervisors meeting trying to get them to understand that our PIO was breaking the law and that we would get sued and we would lose because so much of the law was clear. And, you know, in law, I'm an attorney. Law can go lots of ways, but some things are fairly clear. So with our PIO, we've paid $178 million and lawsuits are still pending. Our PIO hasn't been in office for 4 years. And you should also note that Sheridan, who is the Republican candidate right now, he was convicted of the same court violations as our PIO at the same time. So to vote for Sheridan is just, you know, to vote for our PIO new age, you know. But then, you know, we had $300,000 fines for one case that the Board of Supervisors did not correct on correctional health. They were fined $100,000 for not correcting a problem with correctional health. And then the same case came before the judge again, and it still hadn't been corrected. So then the judge charged $200,000 fines. We had the Maricopa County attorney, the assistant county attorney. He was known for 3 decades as a sexual predator for not just coworkers, but also jurors and other court staff. This was known. They finally put a note in his file telling him not to do that stuff. And he continued, and it just, you know, kept going to court, and we kept paying defense fees. We paid hundreds of thousands of defense fees to keep him in his job because he was a good prosecutor at the expense of all of the people that he was violating, actually. And, you know, this is just a huge waste of money. So my opinion is that when people come to the Board of Supervisors meetings, which they have in all of these situations, when they come to the Board of Supervisors and they say, look, this X is going on, the Board of Supervisors has a responsibility to, number one, look into it and see if it's true. But number two, they need to create policies that stop the action. Because as an attorney, I can tell you, if you fix a problem, if you create a policy so that a problem no longer is a violation, then that is your defense when you go to court. You will win then because it becomes mute. So the court says, yes, this was done wrong, but they've put a policy to stop it and it didn't happen again. So therefore, they're not guilty. They don't have to pay, right? And when we don't have to pay for the violation, we don't have to pay for the defense fees for the other side either. This is just responsible management. I mean, I don't even, and honestly, even without the attorney aspect, I don't even understand why, as an elected representative, someone comes and tells you that someone under you is violating the law, that you're not even willing to look into it, much less do some mitigating.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the County Board of Supervisors has, while it still doesn't receive that much public attention, its role has probably never been more important. And I'm speaking specifically about COVID-19. It's received a lot of money. It's now got a lot more responsibility in terms of distributing that money. And there are a lot of ways I believe, I'm assuming that they could act to help mitigate some of the effects of COVID-19 economically, health, in terms of health. Can you think of one example in some policy that they could improve right now in the context? Like if you were on the board today, what would you be pushing for in the context of COVID-19 and the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors?
Well, the number one thing is I question how we have two entities under the Board of Supervisors who are tasked with emergency planning. And one of them specifically for emergency planning in case of a pandemic. I'm curious how we're in the middle of a pandemic and didn't have a plan, since they have a budget and a board that are that's all they are supposed to be doing is figuring out a plan. Second, the contact tracing. I mean, this is something normal that is done on the county level anyway, for any contagious disease, for STDs, for AIDS. We automatically have contact tracing for these contagious diseases. And yet we come with this pandemic and it's as though we don't even know what contact tracing is. So are we not doing it for the other contagious diseases, or we decided that this one wasn't important enough to address, even though the Board of Supervisors promised in March that they were going to be ready for the contact tracing. They got money in April and they said, we're going to put this money to use. And by August, they were still only contacting 10% of the contact tracing. And of that 10%, they were mainly using smartphone and website. You had to have smartphone or website access in order to participate in the contact tracing, which is completely inefficient and unfair because so many people don't have smartphones and don't have internet access. I mean, we forget everything is not downtown Phoenix. You know, there are a lot of areas in Arizona and a lot of age groups and a lot of different communities who have less access to internet and smartphones than some other people in the population. We can't leave them behind during a pandemic. That's just irresponsible. Some other things the small business grants, I mean, that should not have been restricted. It was restricted in two ways. One, they said that nobody who had a business that was based in Mesa, in the city of Mesa or the city of Phoenix, could qualify for the small business grants. Their reasoning was that Mesa and Phoenix also got their direct funds from the CARES Act, so those cities could take care of themselves. The problem that happened was in Mesa, for example, they did have a really great grant program for small businesses, but they excluded home-based businesses. Maricopa County allowed for home-based businesses, but if you were a home-based business based in Mesa, you were not eligible for either program. You were completely left out. The second thing that the Board of Supervisors did is they restricted no small business in Maricopa County could qualify if they had received any federal funds. So if you received just the basic 1,000 PPP, the Paycheck Protection, because they had just a basic 1,000 or 2,000 that they just sent to almost anybody that applied, even if they really didn't have much of a payroll. So if you even got that $1,000, you were no longer eligible for the county funds, which means almost nobody qualified. This is not helpful. We could have I believe even without the pandemic, I believe that we should have mobile healthcare units. Right now, we have very few healthcare clinics that are associated with the county that people can go to who need the county, because we have so many county programs that people don't even know because there's so many and it's so hard to find. We need more publicity on them. We need them announced more. But you have to go to these very limited locations in order to get these services. And we need to have mobile clinics. They have them in other cities. We could have them here that go out to Sun City or go out to almost to Apache Junction, you know, at the edge of Maricopa County. And even beyond that, even for constituent services, I believe that as a supervisor, there are 5 districts with 5 different supervisors. Collectively, the supervisors make decisions for the whole county, but you were elected in a district. I'm in District 2, which is basically from Cave Creek to Gilbert, all of the East Valley. We should have constituent services in our district where people can come in and talk to the supervisor or their officers in their county. They shouldn't have to always drive down to downtown Phoenix to get their questions answered or to get their concerns heard. It's my District 2 is 1,600 miles, almost
it's broad.
Mm-hmm. That's bigger than a lot of congressional districts. And we don't have constituent services in our county. We can do better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Could you tell us what have you got coming up now? I mean, what do you have any events coming up? Any, how if people wanted to reach out to you directly after seeing this, how what's the best way for them to do that?
So my website, my social media, everything, we made it uniform. It's Deedra for the number 4, Boss, BOS. That's I'm on all the social media platforms. Deedra for Boss. My website is deedraforboss.com. I have policies on there. I have my endorsements on there. I have my events on there. We try to be fully transparent and fully accessible. I respond to questions. Even my own personal Facebook social media is completely open. It's not everything I post is public. People who come and whether on my campaign or my personal, and they ask me questions, I answer them, and I actually answer them.
Mhm.
I believe that if someone has a question, I mean, and not everybody asks with the best intention, but that's not my problem. They've asked a question, they deserve an answer.
Mhm.
So, and I believe that that's the way. I believe that it's you have chosen to be in a public profession that you're not only elected for, but you're paid on the tax dollars. I
Mhm.
believe that you are accountable for the people. Even when you're on your personal time. You know, if I'm out in a restaurant and someone stops me and asks a question because they know, I'm running for office, or after I get the office,
Mhm.
I would expect that I would stop and answer them. If I want private time, I can stay home.
Mhm. 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 Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Well, does anybody have any questions for Deirdre? We don't have a large group here, but does anybody have any particular questions that you'd like to ask? I'm just going to give it a minute there. But yeah, as I said, this recording will be made, it will be published to Facebook, to YouTube, and to the website blackmountain-news.com. And if anybody wants to follow up later on, they can, and they see it and they have a question, they can then reach out to you, can they not? So they can reach out to Deirdre at any of her social media platforms or through her campaign website. And I'm sure she'll be able to follow up with you directly. So I think that, oh, no, I've got a question here. We've got a question from Suzanne, and she wants to know, how do you feel your campaign is going? Do you feel like you've got built up some momentum, or how do you feel at this moment right now?
I mean, we're feeling really good. I mean, first of all, they don't do polls on this level for any of the county offices. We're like, the evil stepchildren. But for example, this weekend we did 90,000 texts, and our texts are very interactive, so they're
Mhm.
more conversational. And we had huge a number of people who had already voted for me and were excited. We had very few that were a no, and then we had a few that were not sure because they didn't have enough information or they hadn't heard of me. But after we had the interactive conversations and
Mhm.
gave them the website and they checked it out, 9 out of 10 for everyone that was undecided came back and said, yeah, I'm totally voting for her. And we're doing everything contactless. So we're doing the contact door drops for information. We
Mhm.
between the I have 10 legislative districts within District 2. That's how big it is. With the legislative districts, I mean, I think they put out like 55,000 literature drops that tell you about the county offices and the candidates that are running. Um, we've also been doing the phone calls and I mean, the postcards to voters. So I feel really great about the campaign. And then I also feel really great that we're setting records on people voting early. And,
Mhm.
and so many people are excited about voting. And that's really what we want. We want people to vote their entire ballot. Because by the way, traditionally, 40% of the people don't vote below president and senator or in Congress.
Mhm.
So, it's these races, a lot of times people aren't voting for them. And if we can get the information out, if people can talk to your neighbors and we can vote all the way down the ballot, we can really change what Maricopa County looks like. And that's what happened in 2018, by the way. People
Mhm.
were excited about voting for a state legislator, someone local, And that's what pushed it over for us to get 4 statewide offices for the Democratic Party. So that the local excitement really lifts up the people on the top of the ballot. So if you want anybody on the top of the ballot to win, start making sure people vote at the bottom of the ballot too.
Absolutely. We had some really good results in 2018, and we had some great people like, Adrian Fontes for County Recorder came out of 2018. So yeah, it's really important that people look down that ballot. Don't just stop at president and senator this year. Don't do that. Tom has actually got a question. He says, well, first he says a compliment. I do the website political event calendar, and you are by far the most yours is by far the most informative website, beginning with posting your upcoming events. Question he has, why did you decide to run for the Board of Supervisors?
So I spent a lot of time holding the Board of Supervisors accountable since, going back to like 2001. I spent so much time up there. But for this particular office, this time the Maricopa County Democratic Party approached me and asked me if I would consider running for this office, and because nobody ever runs for this office in District 2. And, it was the office I already knew about. So that was great. We just had to crunch the numbers and come up with a strategy. Once we did that, we were all in. So that's how we hear. But local I'm very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about what the Board of Supervisors does, and I'm very passionate about informing people about what the Board of Supervisors does. Regardless of anything else with this campaign, most people will have come out more informed about this office than they ever were before, and that's a win.
Absolutely. Suzanne's got another question. She's asking if the Democrat Party is assisting you, if you're getting any assistance from them in this campaign.
Oh yeah, so the Democratic Party is so behind the county candidates. I mean, in fact, the county Democratic Party, they're exclusively like 98% of everything they do is for the county candidates this time. We really feel like if we can change the county, if we can really get people motivated about the county, that we can change and help on the other places of the ballot, like the state legislature and Congress and even the White House. So yes, I mean, this has been a team sport this time. I mean, even if you look at my social media, I'm always telling people, about Adrian Fontes and about Pinzone and about Jeannie Castine, who's running for school superintendent, about Dan Toporek, who is running for county treasurer, and Aaron O'Connor, who is running for county assessor. I mean, constantly, not just saying, vote for this person, but this is why. And I use my platform to lift us all up, because this is definitely a team sport. The bottom line is the Board of Supervisors is extremely powerful. And then we have other elected offices that are also powerful. And for example, the Adrian Fontes as the recorder, there are only so many things he can do if the Board of Supervisors is against him, which is basically what's been happening. And he's been great being creative, getting around the many restrictions that the Board of Supervisors has put on him to really try to suppress the vote. They would say try to save money, but it's really suppressing the vote. I don't know how we can justify spending less money so that less people can vote. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But if we had a Board of Supervisors that was so much more proactive on getting more things done, on updating more systems, Adrian could get more things done. The assessor could get more things done. And a good thing about the assessor to understand is right now the assessor's office uses a drone to assess your house, not a person. So the drone goes over your house and it says, oh, the house is taking up X amount of space. And it charges you based on that whole space. But under Arizona law, your garage is not living space and cannot be assessed for property taxes. But the drone doesn't know the difference between your living room and your garage. So you're now paying taxes on all of it. I mean, this is the kind of things that, they're details. And if the assessor was being held accountable by the Board of Supervisors, he wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking as somebody who's recently last year bought 2 parcels of land and still waiting to get them combined with the assessor, I feel the pain of things not working efficiently and the nuts and bolts and some of the, the bureaucratic structures. That's important though for planning, permission, building a single family residence. It's very important. So absolutely. So I don't know if we have any other questions, but I think we're, oh, wait, now, there we go. We got another one from Tom. Once on the Board of Supervisors, what will you do that is not now being done to get the word out about what the board does and what it's planning to do? So I suppose, how will you improve communications with the community if you get a seat on the board?
Well, the number one thing I want to do upon election is go into the different departments and entities and ask the employees, let's have a suggestion box. Like, what are some things that because you're the expert, you work here, that would improve the system? Let's look at those, which is what Adrian Fontes did in the recorder's office, and it's made an amazing difference. Then going further, I would like for the meetings, and right now the meetings for the Board of Supervisors non-pandemic is twice a month on a Wednesday at 9 or 10 in the morning in downtown Phoenix. I think that we should have more meetings, not just in downtown Phoenix. We're in a big county. We should at least quarterly be rotating them around the county. We should not just have them at 9 or 10 in the morning. We should also have some evening ones like city councils do. I think that we can do that. We can have the request to speak system like the state legislature does right now. The only way to speak to the Board of Supervisors is to go down there in person. Yeah. We can have a request to speak to let people get their voices heard without having to take off work and go downtown during hot traffic during the week. I'd like to have the constituent services. I think that at least in my district, I could go there and allow people to come and talk to me or the office during certain hours. I would like for the meetings to be not just announced on the website and you have to know where and when to look. I think that it should be posted on billboards. It should be given to the PBS station. It should be, announced on television, right? Like let the information get out. I think we should use social media more to engage the public. Whether it's notifying them of meetings, or I think we should do Facebook Lives. They're already recording the meetings. It's just one extra click to make it a Facebook Live. There's just so many ways that we can allow people to be more engaged. I get it. These meetings are not riveting, but to some people, they're their lives. Mm-hmm. The decisions that are made, it's everything. It's zoning. It's, there are what they call county islands. So there are these, places out there in Maricopa County that their address says they're a city, but really the city doesn't have anything to do with them. When they call 911, the city can't help them. And then they go to the county and they need something, within their county island because the county's the only one that can do anything about it, or they have a zoning complaint and the county's the only one that can do anything about it. This is their livelihood. And it may not be riveting to the rest of us, but if someone needs to hear what is going on, they need to participate. We need to make it accessible to them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there then. And now, as I said, we will be publishing a recording of our Q&A live Q&A. We'll be publishing it on the website. That once more time, that's blackmountain-news.com. We'll also be publishing it to the Facebook page and on YouTube. And I'll be publishing it on Twitter as well, with a link to the YouTube video for anybody who wants to follow up. And if anybody has any other questions after seeing this this Q&A, they can reach out to Deidre directly, and that is Deedra for bos.com. And you can find her links to her socials on the website, and you can reach out to her. And I just want to thank you again, Deidre. It's been extremely informative and wonderful to talk to you. And all the best with the rest of your campaign. And to everybody watching, vote, vote, vote.
Thank you so much for having us. And I forgot to say Julie Gunnagle 2020 for county attorney.
Absolutely. Shout out to all our Democrats running down ballot this year. Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody in the chat room. And thank you very much, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.